the hardest part about it for me was always losing the fear, like putting yourself out there. I think that's also the thing that really pushed me forward with your course was you basically telling me like, okay, you can do this, and if you just go for it, then you can make some moves and maybe, yeah, make a living out of it.
You came into the academy pretty early on, am I right?
Yeah, it was, I think, around March 2020 or something.
Because you were living in Amsterdam, which was my old stomping grounds. Now you've moved, which is just proof that you don't need to be anywhere specific to actually make a living doing this. And I'm always just very happy when I see former students posting, hey, I did a job. But you did more than a job. Not only did you score the campaign for Rijksmuseum, which is a legendary brand,
Hmm.
really, but more importantly, you said, I'm no longer having to teach drum lessons. I am now sitting in my office, which looks like a spaceship. It's amazing. This is your kitchen, your office. You're doing this full time. Dude, congrats, and it's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I also think so.
Paint the picture for people who are where you were before you took the master class. And then like paint the picture for people who maybe are in the middle of the master class. And I remember like you calling me when you started to get opportunities and you were hyperventilating
Yeah.
and
Actually, before I started the masterclass, I was already a full-time musician, but yeah, living as a drummer. And I was playing with this band called the QUITS, and I quit at some point. I already had some studio experience from that band and also creating a lot of beats. And so I wanted to do more with that. But then, yeah, you find yourself in this whole artist circuit of music. And yeah, there's not really a clear goal that will bring in some money fast. And I really didn't know what to do with all my studio skills, basically. So I was thinking collaborating with some artists that I knew, but then they weren't gonna pay me. And I was actually teaching drums already, and that was a bit of my cash cow. I When I was in Amsterdam, I actually set up my own little drum school, which was also cool, but always felt a bit like something I just knew how to do rather than I wanted to do. At some point, I just saw your ad on Instagram, and then I was like, "Oh, there's actually something to this," and let's just try this
you
out.
didn't
And
say, oh, it's another scam. Well,
well, no, I didn't think it was a scam. Somehow you just resonated with me, I guess, and it felt genuine to me. And teaching only started at 3 because the kids were out of school, and yeah, so I had every morning. I just learned a lot from it, and I learned how to approach people and how to present myself. I guess I was also figuring out a bit about styles I could make, and then you go ahead and connect to people. And at some point, I got this first gig for a 30-minute short film from this
mhm.
director in Amsterdam. Yeah, that was a friend of mine also who was a video editor for Vice Media. He was editing the movie, so he asked me basically. I was like, yeah, let's do this. I can do this. I basically accepted the project and then heard about the deadline, which was, I think, 1 month or something. Then I was I was losing it for one night because I thought like, okay, a 30-second ad, I've learned that by now, but a 30-minute is something else. I kind of lost track of how that whole process was going to look, and I felt a bit stressed about letting the director know I could do this and when I could do things in time and when I was able to come up with scores. But in the end, I think I spoke to you in that morning, and you told me to make a cue
Cue
list.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a metaphor for like most projects, because when you know the bigger picture, then it's easier to fill in all the stuff, right? So
Exactly. If you don't know, it haunts you, and that's when the anxiety comes because
yeah.
you have no idea what you have to wrestle with. But if you identify it, and that is a metaphor for life, you can't sort what you can't see, right? It pacifies me a lot, actually, when I have a plan and I know what to do no matter how nightmarish the project is. Okay, so tell me now about what must be a highlight for you, because, like for any musician, composing for the Rijksmuseum, which is a legendary venue, culturally speaking, known all around the world. That must be like, hey, did you ever imagine you'd be doing this?
Yeah, well, no. Well, I got a very random call from an ad agency that I've contacted, I think, 1.5 years before. I don't think I ever saw an email back even. It was just me saying, "Hey, I make music. If you ever need some, let me help you out." Apparently, the Rijksmuseum didn't have a crazy big agency who was already working together with other composers or music houses, and they asked me like, "Hey, we're working for this big museum in Amsterdam. You can guess which one it is. It's a 20-second Instagram ad, and we're gonna make some sort of a music video vibe with some stills that we have from paintings of Frans Hals, this famous painter that they have an exhibition for. Can you make the music for that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can. Let me make you a demo, and then you pay this and this price." I
Hmm.
asked, I think, 450 for a demo.
Which is quite a nice fee for a 20-second
Yeah,
thing.
2,000 euros.
Hmm.
So for a final, basically. But they were even willing to pay 250 for each demo that I if I were to do another one. But I always say I include like a couple revisions on the first. Most of the times I include like 2 to 3, because then they also compile their feedback better, and they don't just keep shooting feedback at you.
Which is a nice lesson for everyone to learn. These little things that you can manage in your relationship, and like, this is how I work. Okay. So we will do this, this, and this. Be clear before you start cooking on like, okay, what is the final fee? What's going to be the demo fee? How many revisions? If the budget is low, for instance, limit your revisions. Say, guys, this is a low budget for what you're asking, but I can come up with the music, but one round only of revisions, and then additional rounds. And so this is very good. So what did you end up invoicing for this project?
Well, it was, I think, 2250, because I
Okay,
made another
22
demo.
because you made another demo. And then how much work did you put into this?
So I started off in one demo that I revised once before they asked for another. So that was about, I would say, a full day in total. Yeah, actually, the second demo I already made in between feedback rounds, because I felt a bit like this one
This is
might not
what's needed.
be the one. And that was true, because I made something very, I thought it was cool, and I still think it is. But the feedback was, we're getting the shivers from the guitar lines or something.
In a good
And
way or in a bad way?
no, no, like itching more.
The
So yeah, it was really
shivers to
horrible
me.
feedback. What are you gonna
But
do with that feedback?
you learn as a craftsperson not to take it personally. You're a craftsperson, you're building a house, the artistic stuff, that's where you're free to express yourself. But like, this is a very important skill to learn, which is like when people say to you something really distasteful about something which isn't like even true. A lot of times, like, your guitar gives us shivers because it's annoying, and you're like, well, I've been doing music my whole life, I'm not sure that it's annoying. But you
Yeah,
realize it's like, hey, you're paying me, okay, like, look at it like a scientist. What do you mean? How can we fix that? Because I don't want anyone to be shivering.
yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, man, I cannot tell you how many crazy feedbacks I've already seen by now. Like that's the also the beauty of music, that everybody just has a different feeling to maybe the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so you would say, how much time did you spend overall? Like 2 full days?
yeah, I think it was more like 3, because then no, I would
Two
say
and a
2
half.
actually, 2.5, 2,
Right.
something like that. And then that was gonna be an Instagram ad, and then they came with the news that, or like with the question more, that they wanted to also run it as a broadcast thing. So now it also runs on TV and on radio.
Were they willing to increase the budget at that point, or they just said,
No, not really. No, because
okay,
I think they didn't think about it. I mean, I've mentioned it in my first email, because they asked me for
yeah.
An estimate, that's the word. My prices for broadcast are higher usually,
Right.
but I think they, because it was a couple weeks later already, and they didn't think about it anymore. And they told me like, how nice it's gonna be on TV as well, and this stuff is going places. And I just told them like, hey, usually this isn't the way I do things, but since we're doing this gig for the first time together, and I really like the how we work.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. And I mean, I own all
The
the
rights to the
composition
music.
rights anyway,
Yeah.
so it's just extra booma, basically, extra
Yeah,
PRO
Buma
money.
meaning the PRS, the Publishing Collection Society in the Netherlands, which is a good place for royalties. At the end of it, I think you played it smart because number one, you worked 2 days, you made 2 grand, 1,000 bucks a day, not so bad for sitting in a studio, right? Let's remember we're not doing manual labor that we don't enjoy.
Yeah.
Even then, 1,000 bucks a day would not be bad, but like this isn't that. So that's one thing. But the second thing is always the bigger perspective, right? Which is like, it's not just this project, it's the
Mm-mm.
quality of the interaction with the people who will have more projects in the future.
Yeah.
So it's better to play the long term game where you do 15 projects in the next 10 years with these folks than it is to, for instance, like I see some musicians arguing over details of every little thing, which
Hmm.
frankly does not put you in a good vibes territory.
Yeah.
People don't want to work with people who are bad vibes. I mean, they can get music from different places now. So that's the second thing, the value of the relationship, just by working smartly and constructively with people and not being a pain in the ass. But the third thing, which is even if this budget was lower, the value of having Rijksmuseum on your reel in your bio as an extra sentence, I don't know how much that is worth, but that's worth a lot, to be honest.
Hmm.
That's worth a lot because that instantly removes the need for your talking, justifying, whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the work, it speaks for itself. Thank you very much. So, is there any advice that you would give to people who are where you were before you,
uh,
started this journey, and what would you say to them?
Journal a lot. That helps. And also look back in your journal every now and then, because if you are putting in the work and if you're making your steps, it's just so valuable for yourself also to see your own growth, right? Because
Whereas otherwise you kind of don't feel like you're moving at all, right?
it's nice in a couple things, because for me, breaking into the business was all about knowing and finding my confidence and knowing that I can do this brief and that brief and make a deal with this person, and approach a filmmaker or approach an ad person. And I think when I look back in my journal, for example, like a year ago, I would do things totally different. But the
Mm.
fact that even then I was able to land projects with yeah, with where I was at that moment, that also shows me like it doesn't matter if you feel like you cannot do something, or like you make yourself a bit small. No, actually, when you go for it and you live up to what you say, then it's all gonna go well in the end. Keep track of everything to
Yeah,
see that
yeah.
you actually can be.
Yeah, in the beginning, I feel like it's the confidence is not natural, but the thing that is under your control is commitment.
Yeah.
To say, okay, maybe I don't feel confident, but I am committed. Like I will do the step. And of course it helps if you have a guy like me saying, "I heard your music, you're good. Go." Like I wouldn't say that to someone who's not ready, but it's more about the commitment that you said, "Okay, I'm going to do this." The confidence comes with time.
Yeah.
Now you're confident because you've developed a capacity, and you can only
Yeah.
develop the capacity by doing.
No, for sure. And along the way, you also meet people that are actually quite musical, and sometimes they tell you like, "Hey, this guitar doesn't sound so real. Can you redo it?" And then you learn something new. It's like learning production on steroids.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. You're sitting in a studio, You're
Yeah.
paying your mortgage. As of now, life is beautiful. So there are ups and downs, of course. We spoke about it. It's not easy. Like you said, like the advertising world is knocking on your door and giving you all this money.
No, you have to put yourself out there.
Out of all the options that you can consider for a musician with studio skills, I don't think there's a better option.
Exactly, and even as an artist, I think the big money for artists, or like at least for their whole making record side, is getting a sync somewhere, or having some brand pay for your music to use it. That's where it
That's
is. Yeah.
that's where the money is and the need to do creative things. We spoke about how you weren't sure at first because you were comfortable as a musician on stage, even touring world class kind of performance
Hmm.
requirements. Like, so it's not as if you were like some kind of a spring chicken amateur.
No.
But when you enter a new world, it's a different context, and you're just like, well, how exactly do I conduct myself here, and what do I do, and this and that. And so, this is why we ask our students to do homework, because we're listening. And then when we hear someone who is a remarkable craftsperson, we're like, the only thing that's going to stop you now is your mind and your daily habits of making connections with people. That's why we want to
Yeah.
hear the music. So I was convinced you're a nice guy. You do great music, and the beautiful thing about why you're like perfect for this world is because you really are a craftsperson. Meaning, like, sure, you might have your own favorite genres that you work on personally, but as a mad scientist of music, you really are like a person who probably nerds out on like, oh,
Oh
this
yeah.
is the reference. Like, okay,
Way
let me
too
see how I
much.
can, yeah, how can I achieve that sound? True
Yeah.
to form, not like an
Yeah.
imitation, but like really get at the spirit of that sound. Such a delight to see you again, to catch up.
Likewise.
All right, dude. Thanks so much, man. I'll see you around.
See you
Peace.
around.